Come out of the box.
Hello YouTube, cheers and welcome to The Basement. My name is Bruce Lively.
Once again, I'm D-Boy Slim.
And The Basement Debates is the first daily hip-hop debate show. From Tuesday through Friday, we talk about the most intriguing topics in hip-hop culture and the world around it. So welcome back, Basement family. Get your drinks ready, get your smoke ready, get some popcorn and settle on in. Today we're talking Kanye West and his visit to the White House. Before we go any further, don't forget to go support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/TeamBoxCutter. C-U-T-T-A. Get free music, access to Patreon-only shows, live call-ins, much more. Go support. But anyway, today, we ask what is wrong with Kanye, and we're going to break it down for you. For those of you who have missed us over the last week, it's been so crazy and so busy, we'll get to it.
We got a plethora of shows, though, on the way. We're not going to miss anything from... There's a lot going on.
Styles P. Davies, you know that review's coming.
T.I. just dropped a new one. There's a whole lot going on. We'll get to it all. But today we're going to go over this Kanye and his foolishness at the Oval Office.
With that being said, Lego. We back.
Y'all miss us out there?
Man,
we missed y'all.
Yeah, I'm about to say I missed you guys, man. It's tough. It's tough. It's been busy. It's been crazy. There's a lot going on, and I just want to say thank you to everybody out there who's still watching this show after 2 years, after almost 3 years of being on, after more than 250 shows. We appreciate it. We appreciate it. Last week was a tough one, but we're back. And we're back in full force, full effect.
Now,
nothing but the real.
You haven't had a TV set over the last week to week and a half. By now, I'm sure you've seen Mr. West, Mr. Kanye, and his meeting. I don't like to address him as the president because
because it's disgusting.
He's not a good one, and probably the worst. And with that being said, I guess you know where I stand. Well, I'm not even that, because I give every person a chance to speak. You try to understand what a person's talking about, their point of view, before you ultimately give your intake on or your feedback on what their thoughts or what their comments are, especially somebody that has the platform of a Kanye West. And I told Bruce beforehand, Kanye's always been the person that would, be different, dare to be different, or dare to go against the grain or whatever. And generally speaking, when people do that, I like it when it's for a good cause. Again, when people dare to go against the grain and try to go left or, go against what's going on or whatever, if it's for a good, like, a la Kaepernick, what Kaepernick just did, he could have easily, when, took his fine when they was, telling him not to take a knee, started standing up and said, you know what, it's not worth it. I just want to better and further my career. The heck with it. But for the cause, for a good cause, which was the injustice that had been going on in the country with police officers shooting young black men down with no recourse, no consequences or anything. He felt that it was necessary to use his platform to go against the grain for a good cause. And that's what I mean when I say that. Now, with Kanye, where do we start, man? The guy made a statement several months ago.
Let's go back a little bit.
And dared to say, and you know, some people say, well, there's a message. You know, Bruce would argue that too. There's a message, and what he was saying, he articulated it wrong. And you want to give people the benefit of the doubt. If you're a good person anyway, or whatever, you want to see the good in what a person is talking about. So you try to give people the benefit of the doubt. But when you figure out that there is only ignorance or lack of information or for lack of a better term, stupidity, that this guy seems to just keep passing and throwing on us with his platform, then you have no choice but to call it what it is. And you try to figure reason behind this. Like, what's the reasoning and logic behind this guy always spewing out this political agenda from him being a producer? He's an iconic record producer in the music industry. What's his logic in this? What's his motive behind this and reasoning behind this? I like to call it cooning. I'll still, you know, my man Willie D, he's gone into this, and YouTube he want to flag us flaggers, but he's going into the big thing, you know, about a lot of guys cooning. And this is a perfect, like I told Bruce, I've never seen it at this level. This has to be the top of the line as it pertains to cooning.
I believe it was the upper echelon, as you said.
I've never seen it at this level.
This fine wine of cooning. The best I've ever seen.
Where do we start with this guy in the meeting at the old? How about there was a hurricane?
Yeah, let's just start there.
When you decide to have a meeting about absolutely nothing, just to save face and say, well, I got Kanye in the Oval Office.
Well, wait a minute.
When you do that and you're supposedly running a country, there are really things going on in the world where people, it may require you doing what you elected to do, which is run a country. There was a hurricane in Florida, and neglect or you just don't give a damn or whatever the case, you decide to have the meeting at the Oval Office with Kanye West and say, well, it's just lunch with a good buddy of mine.
Just days after the hurricane, instead of going to visit Florida and be a leader, Donald Trump holds a rally in a completely different state to talk about Kavanaugh, to talk about himself, to talk about Make America Great Again. While America is being destroyed beneath him, he's holding a rally about making it great again, and it still hasn't been to Florida yet. I don't know what he's done. Go ahead.
So let's start there.
It's a distraction. He used Kanye as a distraction.
There was no reasoning to his rhyme, so to speak, with Kanye being and sitting right there in front of Donald Trump, other than to massage Donald Trump's ego. If there's a guy that gets paid for that or whatever, he looked like he was applying for that job just to massage Donald Trump's ego. Other than that, there was issues brought up, they were so scattered all over the place, there was no focus on any one, and there was no seriousness taken from Donald Trump and any one particular. So he may have thrown out a couple of issues or what he thought should be done as far as the black community. And let me just get this straight. On my own, this is me talking for myself, and I can't speak for everybody else. But when this guy, and Kanye West I'm speaking, says he's speaking for the black community, let's just be clear.
It's not.
He doesn't speak for me. He doesn't speak for anybody I know at this point. And let me let Bruce, because we have a lot to cover with this, but I'm going to let Bruce speak in just a minute, but I just want to get that out, that he doesn't speak for us, or he doesn't speak for me at all. But, yeah, so he threw out a bunch of issues. None you could really say, well, Donald Trump, they spoke of stop and frisk, which he didn't realize Donald Trump was an advocate of stop and frisk. And so that might have been the first blunder. And really, are you trying to get something accomplished? Or then he told him, what did he tell him? I didn't mean to put you on blast. Well, if you didn't mean to put those issues in the spotlight or put them on blast, what is your purpose of
Okay, let's start there. Let me get in here.
interrupting the country?
Let me get in here. Before we talk about his nonsensical rant for about 20 minutes, 15 minutes before the question of stop and frisk came up, I'm just going to talk to you about how someone can showcase their ignorance. We didn't know how stupid he was. We didn't know how uneducated he was. I realize now why he was a college dropout. I don't know if he ever made it past the first semester in anybody's college anywhere. I don't know how he graduated high school with such a lack of history. Before we get to his nonsensical rant about him and Adidas and his ego and why he thinks Donald Trump is his father because he needs a father figure, before we get there, let's just talk about his absolute and utter ignorance of facts. He said to everybody on camera, the reason why black people vote Democrat is because of welfare.
That's such a slap in the face. It's not even funny. I would love to laugh at this point, but it's such a slap in the face. It's not even funny.
Let's debunk this.
Is it the hard working black people that I know? That's such a slap in the face. But
more white people are on welfare than black people. That has been the case and has always been the case.
Again, that's just why I say he doesn't speak for us.
More white people are on welfare than black people. So let's stop that right there. You know why black people vote Democrat? The reason why we vote for Democrats is because of something called the Southern Strategy, In the days before Reagan, Republicans decided the best way to get the vote of the white people in the South was to run on racism. To run on racism and Southern Baptists. And so they did that. And slowly but surely, all the racist Democrats of the day went to become Republicans because the Democrats were fighting against racism, and the Republicans decided in order to get that vote, they would be fighting for segregation, for racism, for colored bathrooms, for colored drinking fountains. They decided that they were going to run on racism. That has not only been something they did in the past, it's something they do right now, i.e. make America great again. They vote Democrat because they like to live. They don't want to be lynched. They don't enjoy the Confederacy. They don't enjoy segregation.
Which you seem to question whether we chose to keep ourselves enslaved and if the 13th Amendment needs to even be reinstated or so you question the whole theory of slavery anyway, so I don't know. I'm not sure your whole reasoning besides massaging Trump's ego in this whole thing, but I'm starting to realize there's no method to your madness.
What happens is we're going to be here to discredit Kanye and show you how ignorant he is. The second point, he wants to abolish the 13th Amendment. I don't know if you guys realize this. This is how you show your ignorance. You know, some people who really think they're smart because they can regurgitate what somebody told them one time, but don't know the full context. You can tell somebody really smart spoke to Kanye and said, hey, do you realize that in the 13th Amendment, it says that you can use prisoners for labor? That's another form of slavery? Without telling him the whole first part of the 13th Amendment that says it's illegal to have slaves. If you abolish the 13th Amendment, you will be a slave tomorrow.
Sounds like at that same cocktail party is where he came up with this whole idea of, we chose to be slaves.
So I'm just here to say, he put his ignorance on showcase. For those of you who think that because he mentioned Hoover's name, that makes it okay.
Let's get to that, as a matter of fact. And I was going to ask you, and I was going to touch on it, but I was going to spring it to you and mainly because of the fact you're originally from Chicago, your roots trace back to Chicago. your childhood, you've been around the GDs and the whole growth and development movement. Speak to those out there who may say, oh, well, at least he brought up Larry Hoover's name. Speak to those and shed some light on what kind of debacle that is when you speak Larry Hoover's name in one breath, and then the next breath you say, well, this guy, you were my Superman because I didn't have a father growing up.
Okay, so
what does that mean?
Let's break this down. First of all, there's a reason why in Chicago, amongst the GDs, that to let you know, not everybody can just speak Larry Hoover's name. So I'd appreciate it if you get his name out your mouth, Kanye. Just get his name out of your mouth, because you don't stand for what he stood for, what he stands for. Okay? You don't stand for growth and development. You don't stand for gangster disciples. You stand for Kanye alone. Larry Hoover actually was trying to do something for his community, and hey, he did some wrong, he did some right. As an older guy, I can say that. But more importantly, if he was out right now, there would be less shooting, people would have a direction, and he was a father figure to people who didn't have any. He was a community organizer where there was none. Where there was only racism and crooked cops, Larry Hoover took it on himself to find a way to make his communities strive and thrive. Kanye only cares about Kanye. So first thing is, don't say his name because you don't stand for what he stands for. Second thing is, you too need a father figure, Kanye. You too need a father figure. I finally realized what it is you see in Trump that you like so much. It's yourself. It's ego-driven. The only thing you care about is Kanye. You go there with Jim Brown. We're going to talk about him in just a minute. Man. Just a minute. But you go there and you rant for 30 minutes about your Adidas shoes, about your Yeezy effect, not even knowing that the person you're in front of wants to stop and frisk everybody in Chicago who's black. Not even knowing that he just told black people, what do you have to lose? You're already failing. Yes, that's what Trump is telling us. And you're in front of him. If Larry Hoover did get out, no thanks to you, because he realized that when Kanye said that, all Trump did was laugh, and you didn't even stay on it for a second. You blew past it. What you did was you used it as a way to try to look cool to Chicagoans. We see past that. We see past that. Don't let that fool you. Because if you noticed, the sentence before and the sentence after Larry Hoover was about Kanye. That's it. That's why he was there. If he was having a discussion with the president and the president didn't get to speak once. He wanted to speak to the camera is what he wanted. He wanted to go suck Donald Trump's dick in front of all the other potential voters that he thinks he's gonna have in 2020. That's why Kanye was there. He was hoping, and he's right, because there's people right now that listen to Kanye and say, wow, he's a genius. I like the moves that he's making. I know somebody who's not that big into politics who saw this and thought that it was so great before I broke it down to him. The lies, the history lesson, and the display of ignorance that Kanye showed on every single level, on every single issue that he brought up. It was just about Kanye, and it just displayed his ignorance. If you don't believe me, when he did talk about the stop and frisk, the only good thing I can actually see about this, and that's what I have to say about Hoover, just get his name out your mouth, because you don't stand for what he stands for. You don't stand for what he stands for.
And it was a joke. You brought it up.
He laughed at
Trump
you.
Looked at you and laughed at you.
But fine. Now, a reporter asks you about stop and frisk. Another display of your hyper ignorance. You say, well, Kanye says, I don't like it. I don't think that it should be implemented. It's bad for black people. The reporter then says, did you know that Donald Trump is for stop and frisk. And the Kanye says, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on blast, Mr. President. If you didn't mean to put him on blast, why are you there? Are you showing everybody that you have good hands with which to stroke his dick? Is that why you're there? Why don't you pick up a rake, go outside and sweep the floor, nigger? That's why you're there. If you're not there to put him on blast, why are you there? What did you go for? It's obvious now to me why you went there. You went there because you wanted to get Kanye in a position that he can maybe run on the Republican side in 2020 or 2024. That's really what he wants. We think it's a joke. It's not a joke. Because all the white folks out there that love to see a good coon when they come around thought that he was great. The conversation that we're having in the black community about him is not what's happening in their community. I know because I'm in their community as well. They think it was awesome. They think he was superb. Magnifique cooning, sir. That's what they love, and that's what he was there to serve.
Let me say this. He doesn't hold the whole burden of shame and disgrace by himself. For some reason, Hall of Fame running back Jim Brown felt it necessary to go sit beside him and co-sign and pump fist and cheer on.
Herman Cain. That's who I was thinking.
What it was that Kanye was saying and what ultimately Trump was saying. And his thing was, I'm here to just serve. It just seems so awkward, especially a Jim Brown who went through the whole thing in the 60s and the 70s with the likes of the Kareem Abdul-Jabbars and the Muhammad Ali's. He went through all of that. And, fighting and struggling and saying he was down for the cause to come this far and go in front of Trump and I don't know. It was very awkward. It was uncomfortable for me to watch it.
Let me tell you before my voice goes out. I hope I've been able to truly express my disdain for this whole action presented by Kanye and Jim Brown. It's not
as a black man, it just was unsettling to watch that type of stuff.
I also hope that I've imparted a little bit of knowledge and understanding of why. Not just ranting and raving and yelling on the screen. I hope I've given you a little history as to why everything Kanye said was wrong. As to why he does not need to mention Hoover's name at all. Because I made that clear, right? What he stands for.
That was a joke.
I'm going to talk about Jim Brown. And I'm going to try to come back again with some more historical information. I might put a picture up here. Jim Brown used to walk around with a dashiki and a funny African hat. I say funny because I mean peculiar, because no one else really was doing that. When we looked up as black people like me who wear African medallions because we're proud of our history that was stolen from us, that was taken from us and replaced with something else. And so we strive and cry and yearn for something to belong to. He stood for that. Jim Brown did. I never, ever seen him in anything but the dashiki if it wasn't in a football uniform. I never seen him in anything but the colorful African hat if it wasn't in a football uniform. Now goes to the White House, no dashiki, no more hat, and the first time he puts a monkey suit on is when he goes and says, I'm here to serve. What? 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 This is the same dude who was talking about rediscovering who we are as black people and fighting the power with a fist raised, you go to the first time you get an actual chance to go to the White House and talk about all the things that you've been yelling about for 40 years, and you get there and you say, I have nothing to say, I'm here to serve. What the fuck were you doing the whole time then? What the fuck was the last 40 years about then? If you have nothing to say when you finally get there.
Here's the kicker. When asked about Kaepernick, he undermines it and says, well, I don't think he should take a knee for the flag. I have to double down on what Bruce just said. I won't say it in that tone, but I think y'all get the message. What were you doing for the last? If you don't, if what Kaepernick is doing is wrong, then what were you doing for the last 40? What fight were you fighting the last 40 years then?
I was wrong.
Somebody explain that to me, because I'm confused then.
I realize now that I was wrong.
I have to double down on what you. This is a debate show, and me and Bruce usually debate. But I have to double down when stuff don't make sense. If you don't agree with what the fight that Kaepernick is taking, the stance that Kaepernick has taken, then what was your fight about the last 40 years then? You have to look at it and say, well, what is his what is his motive then?
That brings us to the ending. This is really what it's about. Besides my yelling, besides I'm ranting, I feel it's important that I show the full range of emotions so you know exactly how I feel and you understand exactly why I feel that way. I hope I haven't been convoluted in my speech, but I will just end it like this. Well, I'm not ending it, but my part is done like this. The reason why Jim Brown, after 40 years, goes there and says, I'm just here to serve you, massa, is the same reason why Kanye goes there and says, your hat makes me feel like Superman and you give me male energy because I never had a father. The real reason is because they want power. They want fame, publicity, kind of, but power. The last president called Kanye an idiot, a horse's ass, a donkey.
It's a good point, Bruce.
And ever since then, people like Jim Brown, who hasn't, because he's never been invited to the White House, people like Kanye, who are mad because the last president didn't give him what he figures was his propers, now go back and grovel to the white king only because they finally feel like they have been accepted by someone powerful. And in turn gives them power. That's it. That's it. The level of ego stroking that went on by Kanye is only in return because his ego is being stroked by Trump. Because the old president, the last good one that we had, would never have invited him to the White House. It's funny, he invited Common to the White House. Common came to the White House. These are rappers from the same city. Common came to the White House and spoke eloquently on the struggle of black people. Common came to the White House when the last good president was there and gave a heartfelt poem that he wrote. And Fox News hated it. Hated it. Fox News went all over the place about how gangster rappers shouldn't even be here. But Kanye gets invited by this buffoon, this orange-haired buffoon. And they love it. They love it. And that's exactly the type of ego stroking that Kanye wants. It's the exact type of ego stroking that Jim Brown obviously needed. After years of being rejected, he finally found the one white massa to invite him to the White House, and he feels so stroked, his ego is so stroked by that, he's willing to serve. I'm here to serve. I don't have nothing to say. They asked him, the president of the United States asks you, the African freedom fighter with the dashiki on, what do you have to say, sir? What would you like to see done? Oh, Master, I got nothing to say. I'm just here to serve.
Whatever Trump wants. I'm with it.
40 years later, you got nothing to say. I'm sorry, what have you been saying for 40 years then?
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. That's
Got
it.
any shout outs?
We do. Don't believe the hype. If you're not that into politics, I understand. It's not your fault. There's real life to be had all the time. But listen to what we said. Check the history. Understand that these people are charlatans. They're not here for you. They're only here for themselves. Their ego's being stroked while they stroke the masses' ego. It's a two-way street and they love it.
Believe that. You hear Kanye?
They'll never let you in.
Say something about Larry Hoover. He's going back to Calabasas with Kim Kardashian. He cares nothing about Larry Hoover.
It was a passing statement that he thought would make him look cool to Chicagoans. He didn't even know what Larry Hoover did. He said he was trying to change his life around. That's not why he needs to be out. He needs to be out because he's a leader who held things down.
He didn't know who he was.
Trump laughed in his face after you went and hugged him because you loved him. Listen, BLG Breed said dope. Appreciate that. Salute to you, BLG Breed. We got a new subscriber, Tiffany Walker. We also got Jay Dirty Bird. Said both sides of the city super solid. This is what we're talking about Memphis.
North Memphis and South Memphis.
Yep. And I appreciate that. He said South Memphis is obviously winning right now. Dolph, Moneybag, Black Youngster, Key Glock, Jazzy, Jay Fizzle.
All facts.
Okay. OG Boo Dirt. I don't know who that is.
That's a Akon sign.
Oh, nice. And more who brewing. That's what's up. We appreciate that, Jay Dirty Bird. Thanks for watching. Keep watching, man. Let us know what's going on your side. Believe in Yourself Production says dope. And guess what? We appreciate that. That's dope. Wait a minute. The word dope. Didn't Kanye say that he's gonna stop using the word dope because it's too negative?
More bootlicking and the Django.
He's Django Unchained in the White House.
I'm not gonna. You know what didn't make sense about it? Again, with the whole interview, because in one breath he says, "Well, I can't say dope because it has a negative. It's seen as negative," and then he says "motherfucker."
And then he says "motherfucker" in the White House.
So which one?
In the Oval Office.
Are you like? What is it? That's the whole thing with him. Like, what is it with him? If one breath you
on
say,
live TV,
you know what
for
about
the kids?
Larry Hoover, but then the next breath you say, "Well, Trump, you made me feel like a superhero." That's not what growth and development is.
Fathers, please raise your sons very seriously. This is the symptom of a weak-minded person who didn't have a father in his life. There's a lot of people that grow up without fathers, and not all of them become Kanye. Matter of fact, most of them end up being strong because strong mothers end up raising them. But this can also happen to your kid if you don't stay in his life. Because what will happen, good or bad, that young man will look out for someone to see as guidance.
Kanye was a good producer. He doesn't speak for black people. It's like Charles Barkley was a good basketball player.
If anybody listening to Kanye, man, they already lost, man. Like, pay attention to what Kanye doing.
He make good beats.
Yeah. You pay attention to that dude, then you know what I'm saying. You a lost cause as it is.
And that may be true. That may be true. But you don't have it just lost for good is what we're trying not to happen. Because if we can change one mind, if you're listening to Kanye because you think he's the political genius, because you think he has the right way to go for black people.
Well, what it is that he has an enormous platform.
That's it.
Right.
Which is why it's so embarrassing every time he goes and misrepresents a black man with that type of platform. Period.
That's
bottom line.
That's the extent of it.
Bottom line.
After that, he's exposed himself to be.
He's exposed his ignorance. Fathers, stay in your son's life. or this too may happen to them.
We out of here. It's the basement.
Wait a minute. Bootney Lee Farnsworth, last one, said the South does it better than any other region. The South is more creative and diverse in terms of sounds and styles. No region has had a longer reign than the South, and no region has created more hip-hop subgenres than the South.
Ooh, we might have to have a debate about
That's a debate. We have to appreciate that, Bootney Lee Farnsworth. We're going to talk about that again. I remember that show you're talking about. And that's the basement, people. Don't listen to the Kanye. He's ignorant, and it was on display. And now you know, because we told you so.
Sambo. Jim Brown should be ashamed of himself. We out of here. It's the basement.
Jesus Christ. Peace.